So anyway, back to where we were. That's kind of where we are on the test. I will try to make it a day where we get a chance to go back over it. If we don't and somebody wants to come talk to me about it or something, you can send me an email and we can talk about the test and go over any specific questions you have if we don't get to it. So that was that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to jump into chapter 16 today and talk about it. So I'm going to share my screen here and jump right into 16. Now, and we'll just do it from here like before. That way I think whoever is watching this can follow along better. Okay, when we're talking about intergenerational programming, what comes to mind for any of you guys? I mean, when you think generational, what are we talking about? Just different age groups. Yeah, that's something that I saw in person in therapeutic recreation when I was out at OPC. We had some events where, or some days where we had summer camp going on for the kiddos in town, and then we had our leisure lifestyles participants who are 50 and older that were there, and we had some times where they were playing pickleball, teaching the kids how to play pickleball. You know, different things like that. So you were getting some intergenerational programming going on right there. So we're going to talk about kind of what the value of it is and how it can be applied. We'll talk about its roles, the roles of grandparents, discuss generational differences in relationship perceptions. So when we're talking about intergenerational, just the definition here on the PowerPoint, individuals living in different generations, as in parents and children. You know, a lot of times you'll see pictures, 3 generations in one photo, and it would be, it could be like me, one of my kids, and my dad. You got 3 generations in one photo. Sometimes you can get up to 4. That's about the most I've seen in one. I think it'd be hard to get to that next generation. Intergenerational programming is where you have interactions between older adults and young children. So we need to realize that there's a role of families and family participation in leisure and in this intergenerational programming. Like, we want there to be inclusion is a big word that's used, and you generally think of that in terms of like special needs, special populations. I also think of inclusion when you're talking about including younger children, kids with older adults. Which one of them is being included? Both. You're including both sides, so that's a positive either way. The intended client groups that we talk about, older adults serving children and youth. One way that this happens is through mentoring programs for at-risk youth. There's been a program here in town. It's called Straight Talk. Any of you guys familiar with that at all? That's basically what it is. It was set up by several guys, and they weren't necessarily older. They're my age or thereabout, but they set up this program for youth to come in, and they did, positive activities. And, they'd go out and, maybe have a trash pickup day. They would do things that were positive that you had older people, younger people together, and they were, let me get you down here. You have the 2 groups together, and the mentoring takes place because the youth, when they see that they're learning positivity from these older, wiser adults, are going to buy into what they're telling them, And the best way to show somebody how to make positive change is to actually show it to them, rather than just talking about it. If they're there taking time out of their life, out of their schedule, to take time to help these kids get on the right track, then obviously that's going to mean a lot to these kids. And that it's, well, you know, if they can make a positive change in a third of the ones that they work with, it's worth it, you know. So that situation is very good here in this area. Some situations you have children and youth serving older adults, you know, senior centers involving young people in activities. Why might this be good? What would this do for the older people? You think they see a lot of young kids in these type facilities? Probably not. You know, you think it'll improve their mood? Absolutely. You think some of them will probably open up and talk more than they have in a long time because, hey, this kid reminds me of my grandson, you know, and you start talking, and I guarantee you, and I've seen it, and it doesn't even have to be young kids. You know, I've had classes where I've had, you know, you guys go out to some different places, you know, the VA and some different places like that. Of course, they wouldn't allow it right this second, but man, they love visitors and they love talking to younger people and telling their stories. And, you know, people that are younger are kind of like their target audience to share their battle stories and all their things with, you know, as long as the people that they're talking to are showing interest in what they're talking about. And then you also have cases where children, youth, and older adults serve together in an intergenerational family leisure setting. So we're talking about the differences in age, intergenerational, so grandparenting. There's more people now that are experiencing grandparenting due to increased longevity. People are living longer. I waited so late to have kids, I'm gonna have to live pretty old if I want to see a grandkid, or my kid will have to start young. one of the two. So we'll see how that goes. No, I should get there. But the roles of a grandparent, you know, would be, you want them to be a valued elder, you know, someone that the kids, younger children, you know, relish spending time with. I'm very fortunate. Fortunate and unfortunate. My parents live close enough to us. Of course, we own about 300 and something acres of land in Coffeyville, and we've got our house that we live in. It used to be my grandfather's house. He passed away, and I remodeled it, and we moved in there. Now, it was right in the middle of our family land, and my parents live close. Now, do I necessarily love living right next to my parents all the time? No. But is it absolutely, do they get to spend a lot of time with their grandparents? Yes. Do I pawn them off on them all the time? Yeah. No, I don't. I actually, we try not to, because my mom keeps my two younger kids every day while my dad's there a lot of the time too. But they have a lot of time to build a relationship with their grandparents. They're right there close. Now, the time when I don't love it is, say, on a weekend day where we're just having a lazy day. We don't come outside. We're just watching TV. They're playing on their tablets or whatever. I'm trying to grade stuff. And I get this text like, hey, are y'all okay? We haven't seen y'all move over there today. I'm like, what do you think? We all died? You know, that's the time when I'm not real crazy about them being next door, you know. But the rest of the time, it's all good. A lot of times they can serve as a surrogate parent. Sometimes it's a parent that doesn't necessarily have the skills, you know, maybe too young, maybe not in a situation where they could. Sometimes, you know, a parent may be incarcerated. They may have an accident, you know, a death or something like that, and they actually serve as parents to the children. In that situation, they are definitely going to be a valued elder to those kids. A confidant, if they're serving their role as a grandparent, and they're getting to really this valued elder status that it's talking about here, then they will turn into a confidant for these kids. They're going to tell, and my kids are already doing that. They're telling, my kids named themselves Lolly and Pop. They thought that was cute, Lollipop. Anyway, they tell Lolly and Pop stuff that they would never tell me. And then sometimes they have to tell me because, hey, you know what Cooper told us today? Like, and because it'll kind of raise their eyebrows, but he would never say it to me. But obviously they have fit that confidant role. And probably most importantly here, they're a source of love, help, understanding, and friendship. So I don't have any grandparents left, but I do have good memories and had a lot of this with them when they were here. Family leisure. Time spent together by grandparents, parents, and or grandchildren in recreational activities. I don't think there's nearly enough of this that goes on in a lot of families, at least. Some are really good about it. Now, what has COVID done to this? It's just about killed this top line right here for a lot of people right now. Now with the vaccine and all, some people are feeling more comfortable and more confident about getting together. I've seen some Facebook posts where, hey, I got to put my arm around my grandmother for the first time in a year, which is awesome. But for the last little bit, there has not been very much of this going on because of we're all being told to stay apart. You're scared to get around your grandparents because you don't want to expose them to anything because they're the vulnerable population. So, when it all came out, I told you my parents keep my two youngest kids. I was actually nervous because obviously my two youngest are around my kid that goes to school. And you didn't know at first how much there was going to be a spread with the kids at school and catching it and all that. And I knew that my two littlest ones were going to be around my school age child. And I'd be sending the little ones over to my parents. I'm like, am I going to kill my parents by sending my kids over there? I mean, it was a valid question in a way. My dad's had several heart stents, so he would not be a good candidate to catch COVID. Anyway, it's just kind of a shame, and hopefully we're breaking out of this deal at the top where there can be more time spent together with grandparents and parents and grandchildren doing recreational and leisure activities. Now, that doesn't mean you got to be out in the yard playing flag football all together. I mean, leisure is things that you do in your free time. It can be putting a puzzle together. It can be storytelling. It can be watching a movie. I mean, it can be so many things that don't include having a cookout. I mean, there you go. It's not therapeutic recreation, but it is leisure, family leisure time, and that's important to have that to get this intergenerational thing going. For it to be extremely positive, you want it to be highly valued by both the grandparents and the grandchildren. It's a shame there's, in some cases, the grandparents don't really buy into it. I'm lucky in that my parents really want the kids around. Now, there's times when I get home in the afternoon where they're like, I come walking over to go get them, and they're like shoving them out the door before I even get there, like, here, take them. I can tell that they've had enough that day, but for the most part, it is highly valued by both sides. Simultaneously consensual and conflictual. What do you think we mean by that? I think it plays in a lot of times to what, there's times where for the good of our children, our youth, that they may, say, I want to play Minecraft on my tablet. And my answer will be, no, let's go outside. Let's go see Grandma and Granddad. You know, so they're going to have a little conflict, internal conflict of whether or not there's two ways. They're either it's going to be consensual and they're just going to run across there and go, or it's going to be this conflictual where you kind of have to do a little bit of a push to get them to engage. And it can kind of be both directions. Sometimes you need to say, hey, Grandma, kids are missing you. You about ready for them to visit? You know, because I don't just want to send them if they're not asked for. The older generation perceives relations more positively than the younger generations. Now, my kids are all still young. Oldest is 7. They all love going over there and hanging out with Lolly and Pop. What you think's going to happen when we hit about age 12? Not so much. It's not going to be so cool to go over there then. You know, right now, that's the best thing in the world. They go over, man, if they get to spend the night with them, whoo, man, they get to stay up late. They get to watch stuff they probably wouldn't even watch at home. They get candy. But at 12 years old, my 12-year-old, I'd have to force over there. I can see it coming. I know that's how it's going to be because I was the same way, you know. And at that state, you know, the older generation is getting older and older, so it's becoming more and more important to them because they realize that they are getting older and they want to make the most of the time they have. So there's that conflict of forcing them to come see them. You know, do they want to, you know, how much do you want to push that? All right, generativity. It's a midlife concern for and care of future generations as legacy of the self. You want to train people in this midlife area to take on the role, you know, like we're talking about grandparenting and being mentors and things like that, to do the sort of things that are going to lead to this intergenerational interaction that we're talking about here. Both generations show behaviors that exemplify generativity. So grandparents, one thing they like to do, and it was like I was talking about with the guys at the VA and the ladies at the VA, they love to share their stories. Grandparents share family history. Part of the Civil War was fought on the land that we own. We found relics on our land. It's, you know, it's really pretty cool when you think about it, that there were people battling like where my house is right now. So my dad has this collection of stuff that he's found, metal detecting bullets and knives and belt buckles and things like that, which is pretty cool when you think this is from back, what, 1860, wasn't that the Civil War? Pretty old, cool stuff. He's found cannon shots that they shot out. That's his family history that he's, you know, we had people that were involved in it. Somebody way back found our family tree from way back, and he loves to talk about that stuff. Just because it's cool, not for anything really. He's not still living in Civil War days or anything, don't get me wrong. He likes to talk about all the artifacts and things like that. Talk about his dad and what he used to do and all that. Grandchildren help grandparents learn about changing values and opinions and new technology. Facts. I have seen my 7-year-old show my parents how to do things on their iPhones that they didn't have a clue how to do. And you know, that starts at a young age. And do you realize how proud those kids are of themselves when they do those type things? Like, they're sharing that with their grandparents who they love, and they're able to teach them something for a change. So they're feeling proud about this whole situation. So applications to therapeutic rec. As it says here, grandchildren and grandparents both sacrifice their own personal preferences to enjoy leisure together. That's where we were talking about sometimes, you know, my parents may want a little bit of breather time, but they realize that if they actually will take the time, do something special that they will enjoy it with the kids. Same thing where the kids may want to play on a tablet or do something else. They both have to kind of sacrifice some personal preferences sometimes to make this leisure time together mesh and be good for both sides. They need to realize, both sides need to realize that they can learn from the experience. They might gain a sense of family history. Now, this is for the kids. Leisure education can normalize ambivalence. What's ambivalence? If you don't know, somebody Google it. I want to hear an actual definition of ambivalence. It's hard to explain.
The state of having mixed feelings or contradictory ideas about something or someone.
The state of having mixed feelings or contradictory ideas about something or someone. So it can help people to realize, hey, some days you might not want to hang out with Lolly and Pop, but you need to realize that you're learning life lessons from them and they're not going to be here forever. You know, that's what kind of helps overcome this ambivalence and help them to see the importance of it. The more generations can be involved, the better. All right, here's a model. We've talked about a bunch of models in this class. The family model of care, 3 main components. Collaborative culture, you want everybody to collaborate in their own way, work together. A home-like setting where it feels natural. You know, that's what you want. And you want to see some meaningful activities, you know, some things that are going to, you know, when we talk about therapeutic recreation, you know, the key of therapeutic recreation, it needs to be recreation or leisure-based, and it needs to be purposeful. Another word to me for purposeful is meaningful. You know, it needs to be being done for a reason. It needs to stick with them. And you know how when we talked about briefing and debriefing, what do we talk about when we're debriefing? You know, what did we just do? How do you apply this moving forward, and what did this mean to you? So you want it to be something that's going to be meaningful. So let that kind of marinate, and that fits that all together right there. It expands to the relational model of care where other non-family support persons can be involved. Friends of the family, maybe even, you know, doctors, dentists, people that your kids see that they need to trust. You know, they're not going to be doing leisure things with them, but they need to understand that this model of care is kind of all encompassing, and that the people that are older are looking out for their best interests. So interdisciplinary approach. When we talk about interdisciplinary, all right, again, what are some of the disciplines that we all work together with in recreation therapy? Physical therapy, absolutely. Who else? Yep, psychology. Occupational therapy. Speech therapy for sure. Nutrition services, dietary. We need to be on page with them and what they're telling us to do, because if we're not helping them with their meal plans, if we're sabotaging what they're trying to do with the clients, then we're not doing what we need to be doing. What else? Pharmacists, direct care workers, you know, the ones who actually help them with daily living skills. A whole ton of different groups that work together. So social workers, occupational and physical therapists, geriatricians, park planners, nurses, etc. It's when we're talking about this, you know, multi-generational approach, all of these people can play a role. Now, the person needs to be at the center of the discussion. The person who we're trying to benefit from what's going on needs to be at the center of the discussion. And we, as an interdisciplinary team, need to understand that person's perceptions of what's going on, what they're expecting, and we can clarify that and let them know what is coming. The family, I've always said this from the start, sometimes we even need family to step in and help with assessment. If the client is unable to do it on their own, we need to have family be included as part of input. They may tell us some things that their loved one enjoys doing that they might not have brought up on their own, things like that. We want them to be involved in the planning process and in the implementation process as much as possible. Most kids, clients, you think they would feel more comfortable? Say you go to a long-term care facility. Do you think these kids would feel more comfortable if their family was able to attend an event? I would think most would, unless they have a bad situation at home or something like that. They would enjoy the fact of being able to see their family, interact with them, and that's always a positive thing. So leisure education with this interdisciplinary approach is going to provide the opportunity to hear diverse perspectives. You're going to get a lot of input from people who have education in different areas, and something to take with you is remember that, don't back down on the things that if you know best, if you come through this whole process and you are a CTRS and you are trying to provide therapeutic recreation to someone, you are the one who is the expert in that area. Now, so don't back down if a social worker starts telling you what you need to do. Now, vice versa, you don't need to be telling the dietitian what type of meal plan they need to put a specific client on, because that's not your lane. So stay in yours and let them stay in theirs, but let them merge together where you're working for the best for the client all together. That's where you get these diverse perspectives, and that's what's good. And I wish maybe at some point before this class is over, I can find a short video of a interdisciplinary team meeting that's not going to show any confidentiality or anything like that, where you actually see the dynamic of the different groups trying to work out the best plan for a client, because you have some strong opinions coming from a lot of different directions, and you have a team leader who's going to have to serve as that mediator kind of to keep everybody from having a brawl over the table, because some people are very strong-willed and want their way to be the only way. Just something to think about, because that's something that you could see in the future. As far as research outcomes, you'll notice these chapters all work the same, these lessons, and they're done this way on purpose. Some things that they have found through this intergenerational leisure system: they've seen increased life satisfaction, enhances in self-esteem, increased knowledge of values, skills, and the culture of the other generation. It helps us to understand each other better. Kids don't have a clue why their grandparents are the way they are and what they've gone through unless they spend time with them and do some things with them and have the opportunity to learn about them. So that's what's happening here. They're learning about their culture and their values and their skills that they learned as they were coming up. They've shown that this can lead to decreased agitation in individuals with dementia, and that's something that's relatively common in dementia. Any of you guys have any experience with anyone who's had dementia? It's, when you get to a certain point, agitation becomes part of it, and they may not be agitated at you. Sometimes they may not even know why they're agitated, but it's something that you start to see. And when they're around, familiarity, family, people that are gonna, even if they don't know your name, it's gonna click to a degree, unless they're in late stages, that, hey, this is somebody I know. This is comfort to me. So you'll see levels of agitation go down because of this intergenerational grouping that you put together. It's going to make that agitation go down. So intergenerational programming, which is mixing all age groups, long story short, can empower individuals and families using leisure education to build upon these leisure abilities, a key role for the therapeutic rec practitioner. Leisure education is something that we probably don't do enough of sometimes. We want to jump right into activities. We want to jump right into doing stuff. Everybody's like this. You don't want to sit around and just listen forever and wait and not do. You want to go on and get started doing something fun. However, if you want things to be something that they can carry with them, they need to have the proper background and how it can apply moving forward. And they need to know how to do activities right for them to get the most out of them. So leisure education is something that we do that is important. It may be education about what we're doing that day, or why we're doing it, or what's available for you to do, or teaching a new activity that they don't know about. All of those things fall under leisure education. Let's see. And the frameworks that we talked about, they can help to guide, these models, theories. They can help guide therapeutic rec professionals in enhancing leisure abilities for individuals and families alike. Okay? So we are going to stop there for today. We're not done, but we're going to stop there. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and I'm going to end here on this.